Do you want to talk about why I wrote the prequel novella to the Siren Wars saga before I wrote the Siren Wars saga? Well, the Siren Wars saga is a mermaid story all about the war between the humans, the mermaids, and the sirens. Inside of this trilogy, we are seeing that 1,000 years ago, Selena's great-great-grandmother accidentally started this war between the humans and the mermaids and the sirens. Now, inside of my story, the mermaids and the sirens are very much the same, except for their intentionality. They all have the same power to kind of sway humans with their voice, but the mermaids do not use it for evil, while the sirens have actively chosen to separate from them and to cause harm using their voices. So that's the differentiation between the sirens and the mermaids. The sirens are really, really mad at the mermaids, and they're trying to drag them into the war with these humans that has been ongoing for the last 1,000 years, but they really want to ramp it up and kind of take charge of everything. So inside of the trilogy, we are seeing my girl Selena go through the process of trying to spare the merm community, trying to save everybody, including the sirens, and eventually getting dragged up to the surface and having to survive the humans. And so it's a very interesting story about this war. We get to see her as a spy to the Mer Queen, who she is a distant relative of. It's a matriarchal society. It is fantastic. I love it. But I chose to write the prequel first, which takes place 1,000 years earlier. It is about her great-great-grandmother, Isla, and she was the one who started this war. And so I wrote that first because I wanted the lore, I wanted the history, I wanted to be able to include that in the Siren Wars because that was the impacting moment that changed the course of her entire life. And so I needed to know what happened then. I needed to know what was going on for that. And I could have started with the series and then gone back and written the lore. I could have just written myself a paragraph on what was going to happen, but I wanted to have that full story because I knew I wanted to tell that as a prequel novella. And so I wrote that one first. And that gave me a really good basis for how I was going to create my Mer community and evolve it over time. Because Selena is a very different mermaid living in a very different world than her great-great-grandmother Isla. Isla was very prim and proper. She was a princess. She was a literal princess. She was one of the younger princesses to show her line then went down to Selena as the spies to the Mer Queen. And the older sister was the one that would eventually take the crown and pass that on through her line. And so Isla was a princess. She lived in the palace. Her father was the Mer King, and she was very prim and proper. She wore the pretty pearls. She did all the nice posing, and she was a very lovely, she took authority. She wasn't very quiet, but she was very, very respectful. She was very, very girly. She was very, very, grew up in a palace. While Selena did not grow up in a palace. Selena was trained to be a spy and a warrior for this Mer Queen, who she is distantly related to. She was trained to then be stronger and to do more dangerous things. And so they live in a very different time. They live in a very different world. But because I got to see the palace first, because I got to go through Isla's story, I saw who she was as a princess, the rules and regulations she had to live by, the way that she was an ambassador to the humans. She was the literal ambassador to the humans. They had a great relationship until the inciting incident in the story happened. So I got to see what it was like before the war, before the humans turned on the Mer. And so I got to get all of that establishing information. I knew what the palace looked like. I knew what the human palace looked like. I knew what was happening under the sea, how they used different bioluminescent creatures for lighting, how they traveled, how they were able to do things. The fact that they weren't able to travel in the dark without some source of light, the ways that they were interacting and ways that they were doing different things was all established inside of this novella. So not only did I get the lore, the history, the inciting incident, but I very much got the world building. It told me everything that I needed to know for this book. So I effectively got to create my world Bible as I was writing this short story, and then I was able to build upon it on what 1,000 years would then do and transform the people, the culture, the architecture, the landscape of both under the sea and above the sea. And so I really got to discover a lot and create all of my visuals. I got to do a lot of work with this in a capacity where I was telling a short story. So then I could build upon it in my full series. And it was just the best choice I could have made. And it's not something I do for all of my series. You know, I have a prequel novella for the Golden Trilogy, and that was not written first. I did the first book in the Golden Trilogy, then I went back and wrote the prequel novella before I wrote book 2 and 3. So it really depends on who you are, how you're writing, where it fits into the story, because with the Golden Trilogy, it was the past of the main character. It was a few years before the book started. I did that as needed. I learned about her more, or her past more, as I was writing the story. This one was a dramatically different time frame with a different character. And so I really liked having that first so that I could then sprinkle in some of Isla into Selena and into Selena's mother as it kind of traveled down their line. The little personality things, the movements, the choices, you can directly connect them and see those correlations through that family line and nature versus nurture. And so I got to do a lot with this one. And if you are going to be creating something that has the inciting incident for whatever's going on in your story happening well before, I love the idea of creating the prequel novella first. It doesn't even have to be a novella. It could be like a short story. You could write a scene. It could just be a bonus that you're giving away on your social media or your website. But having that before you write it gives you a lot of establishing information to allow you to make your story stronger. And by doing the prequel novella first, I really got to experience a lot of what I needed to make this book stronger right in the very beginning, that I did not have to change, I did not have to tweak, I didn't have to go back and think, now how can I connect these things? Because I knew it so strongly from that novella, it just poured into the entire rest of the series. So it's something you can take into consideration. If you want to get your hands on the Siren Wars, the first book is actually free in ebook form on all the major platforms. So you can grab it, you can take a look and see if this is going to be a good fit for you. There's a lot of really great swoony romance in here, but also a lot of danger because it is a war and it's mermaids and it's all the good things. And you know, I'm heavily connected to the mer community. Yes, there's a professional mermaid community out and about in the world right now. I've spoken at different conferences and different events for professional mermaids. I own Mermaid Tales. You've seen the pictures, you've seen the videos. And so this is just a really fun, almost like a love letter from me to child me who wanted to be a mermaid so desperately. So you can grab the first book in the series for free right now, and then you can read the rest of the series as well. Bonus content in the omnibus. If you're liking it or if you like the idea of it, just buy the omnibus. It has bonus things that you cannot get anywhere else inside of the omnibus. You are welcome. And it's lots of fun. It's also a beautiful cover. So drop your questions on the Siren Wars and on how I write my prequel novellas to help inform what I am doing inside of my story and how it helps me to move forward with the story that I'm writing. You can ask questions about how I did it for the Golden Trilogy as well, because that is an entirely different conversation and so freaking helpful for writing book 2 and book 3. So if you want to talk about placement of writing that after the first book, go ahead and let me know down in the comments and follow along for daily videos helping you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your marketing to your publishing, to make this your most profitable and most stress-free year ever. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.